Part 1. The Impossible Engine. The rain fell hard on Seoul that night. Inside the old research building, Dr. Park Gina sat alone in her office, staring at equations that covered every wall. She had not slept in 3 days. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago. But she could not stop. Not now. Not when she was so close. 15 years. That was how long she had worked on this problem. 15 years of being laughed at. 15 years of other scientists calling her a dreamer. 15 years of funding committees telling her that her research was a waste of time and money. Everyone in the galaxy agreed on one simple fact. Faster than light travel was possible, but only in 2 ways. You could fold space using massive wormhole generators that took centuries to build. Or you could use hyperspace corridors, ancient pathways between stars that the elder species had mapped over millions of years. Both methods required technology and infrastructure that young species could not hope to have. Earth was a young species. Very young. Humanity had only learned about alien life 30 years ago when a Velith trading ship picked up old radio signals from Earth. The aliens had arrived expecting to find primitive creatures. Instead, they found humans who had already split the atom and walked on their own moon. Still, the galaxy had rules. Young species were called nursery species. They were given a small area of space to live in. They could buy old technology from the elder races. They were expected to be quiet, be grateful, and wait their turn. Maybe in a few thousand years, they would be allowed to join the real galactic community. Gina had never been good at waiting. She heard footsteps behind her. Her husband, Kwon Do-yoon, walked in carrying 2 bowls of noodles. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gentle hands. He had been an engineer before he married her. Now he was her partner in everything. "You need to eat," he said softly. "I think I found it." Gina whispered. Do-hyun set down the bowls and looked at the equations on the wall. He had seen hundreds of versions of this work over the years. But something in his wife's voice made him pay closer attention. "Show me," he said. Jina pointed at a series of numbers. "Everyone has been trying to bend space or go around it. But what if we could just ignore it? What if we could make the ship exist in a state where normal space does not apply to it?" Do-hyun studied the math. He was not a physicist like his wife, but he understood enough. His eyes grew wide. "This would mean," he started, "no wormholes, no corridors, no infrastructure, just a ship and a destination." Gina's hands were shaking. "We could go anywhere, Do-hyun. Anywhere in the galaxy. And no one could stop us." They worked through the night. By morning, they had called in the only 2 people they trusted completely. Lee Yuna was a young graduate student with a gift for computer simulations. She was only 25, but her mind was sharp as a knife. Professor Bae Taeson was the opposite. He was 78 years old, a legendary physicist who had taught Gina everything she knew. His body was weak, but his brain still worked perfectly. The 4 of them gathered in a basement laboratory that the university had forgotten about. Gina explained her theory. Yuna ran the numbers through her simulations. Taeson asked hard questions that made Gina think deeper. Do-hyun began sketching designs for an engine that could make the theory real. "If this works," Taeson said quietly, "everything changes. You understand that, yes? The entire galaxy is built on controlling travel between stars. The Korath hegemony charges fees for using the hyperspace corridors. The Velith make their money by building ships that can survive the journey. The Morai Collective has spent millions of years mapping safe routes. And Earth has nothing," Yuna added. "We are stuck in our little corner, buying their old garbage and saying thank you." Gina nodded. "That is exactly why we need to do this. Not for money, not for power, but because humanity should not have to beg for permission to see the stars." It took them 2 years to build the first prototype. They worked in secret, using parts they bought with their own money. The ship was ugly. It was a converted cargo shuttle that Dohyun had found rusting in a junkyard. They filled it with alien technology that they had taken apart and rebuilt. They added human computers and human engineering. They called it the Sunbird because Gina had always loved the old Korean stories about birds that flew toward the sun. The night of the first test, they gathered in an empty field far from the city. The Sunbird sat on the grass like a wounded metal bird. Gina climbed inside alone. This was her theory. If something went wrong, she did not want to risk anyone else. Ready? Dohan's voice came through the radio. Gina looked at the simple controls in front of her. A destination screen. A power switch. A button marked Engage. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Ready, she said. She set the destination for Mars. Then she pressed the button. The universe twisted. For a moment, Gina felt like she was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Colors that had no names flashed before her eyes. Sound that was not sound filled her ears. Then it stopped. She looked out the window. The red surface of Mars stretched out below her. She checked her instruments. 4 seconds. She had traveled from Earth to Mars in 4 seconds. Gina started to laugh. Then she started to cry. Then she did both at the same time. Her radio crackled. Gina, are you there? We lost your signal. What happened? She took a deep breath. I am on Mars, Dohyun. It worked. It actually worked. Silence. Then she heard her husband's voice, shaking with emotion. Come home, Gina. Come home so we can change the world. She pressed the button again. 4 seconds later, she was back on Earth, landing softly in the same field she had left. Her team ran toward the ship. Yuna was screaming with joy. Tayson was wiping tears from his old eyes. Dohyun pulled her out of the ship and held her so tight she could barely breathe. Above them, the stars shone cold and distant. For millions of years, they had been out of reach for young species like humanity. But not anymore. Dr. Park Gina looked up at those stars and smiled. We are coming, she whispered. Ready or not, we are coming. Part 2. The Whisper Spread's ambassador, Cho Min-jae, hated his job. He had hated it for 5 long years. Every day, he woke up in his small apartment on Tessera 9, the largest trading station in the galaxy. Every day, he put on his formal suit and walked to the diplomatic quarter. Every day, he smiled at aliens who looked at him like he was a pet that had learned to speak. ESS ERA-9 was a massive structure that floated in neutral space. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived and worked there. Ships came and went constantly, carrying goods from one end of the galaxy to the other. It was the heart of galactic commerce, the place where empires made deals and fortunes were won or lost. Earth had one small office in the basement. Min-jae was 42 years old. He had been a successful lawyer on Earth before he took this position. He had thought he was coming to do important work. Instead, he spent most of his time filling out forms, attending meetings where no one listened to him, and explaining to alien merchants why Earth could not pay higher prices for basic technology. The elder species had a word for species like humanity. They called them nursery species. It meant that humans were children in the eyes of the galaxy, too young to be taken seriously, too weak to be respected, too poor to matter. Min-jae had learned to smile through the insults. He had learned to bow his head when the Korath officials demanded extra fees. He had learned to say nothing when the Velith traders cheated him on simple deals. That was his job. To keep Earth out of trouble. To make sure humanity did not anger the wrong people. Then the message arrived. It came through a secure channel that only Earth's government knew about. Min-jae read it once and thought it was a joke. He read it again and thought it was a mistake. He read it a third time and his hands started shaking. Independent FTL achieved. Full capability confirmed. Prepare for formal announcement. Authorization code follows. The code was real. The message was real. Everything Minjae had believed about humanity's place in the galaxy had just become old news. He sat in his office for an hour, thinking. Then he did something he had never done before. He requested an emergency session with the Galactic Commerce Council. The council chamber was the most impressive room Minjae had ever seen. It was a vast circular space with seats for representatives from 47 spacefaring species. Light came from everywhere and nowhere. The air was filtered to support dozens of different life forms. Floating platforms carried diplomats who could not walk. Translation devices hummed constantly, turning every language into every other language. At the center sat the High Arbiter, the leader of the council. Her name was Tisana, and she was a Mirai. The Mirai were the oldest species in the known galaxy. They had been traveling between stars when Earth was still a ball of molten rock. Tisana herself was over 6,000 years old. Her body was made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched young species grow up and old species fade away. When Minjae walked to the speaking platform, every eye in the room turned to look at him. He heard whispers. He saw smiles that were not friendly. "The human ambassador requests to speak," announced the chamber voice. "This is unusual. Nursery species are typically represented by their sponsor race." "Earth has no sponsor race," Minjae said clearly. "We speak for ourselves." More whispers. The Korath representative, a massive creature covered in black scales, made a sound that might have been a laugh. The Velith diplomats looked at each other with amusement. Only Tisana remained still, watching Minjae with ancient eyes. "Very well," Tisana said. Her voice was like music played on glass. "Speak, little human. What is so important that you interrupt the council's schedule?" Minjae took a deep breath. He thought about all the insults he had swallowed over the years. He thought about all the times he had bowed his head and said nothing. He thought about the message burning in his pocket. "Earth is developed independent faster than light travel," he said. The room went silent. Completely silent. Minjae could hear his own heartbeat. "We will conduct our first interstellar voyage in 30 days, he continued. "As required by Galactic Accord 773, we formally request recognition as a sovereign spacefaring civilization with full travel rights." The Korath representative stood up. "Impossible. This is a lie. It is not a lie. Independent FTL requires infrastructure that your species cannot possibly have built. You are wasting our time with fantasy stories." "Then let us prove it," Minjae said. He kept his voice calm, but inside he was burning with a feeling he had almost forgotten: pride. "In 30 days, we will demonstrate our technology. Any species that wishes to observe is welcome. We have nothing to hide." The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded that Minjae be removed. Others called for investigations. The Korath diplomat was screaming that this was an attack on galactic security. The Velith were frantically calculating what this would mean for their business. Through it all, Tisana sat perfectly still. Her crystal eyes never left Minjae's face. Finally, she raised one hand. The room fell silent instantly. "The human ambassador has made a formal request under galactic law," she said. "He has also offered to prove his claims. I see no reason to deny either request. The demonstration will take place as proposed. All member species may send observers." "High Arbiter," the Korath representative protested. "This is clearly, the matter is decided." Tisana's voice was final. "We will see the truth in 30 days. As the chamber emptied, Tessana remained seated. Minjay started to leave, then stopped when he heard her voice. Ambassador Cho. He turned. The ancient being was looking at him with something he could not read. Curiosity, perhaps. Or concern. Or both. You understand what you have started, she said. It was not a question. I understand that my people are tired of being treated like children, Minjay replied. Children grow up, Tessana said softly. Sometimes they grow up to be wise. Sometimes they grow up to be dangerous. The galaxy will be watching to see which kind humanity becomes. Minjay bowed his head slightly. Then we will try not to disappoint. He walked out of the chamber with his head held high for the first time in 5 years. Behind him, the whispers had already started spreading across the station, across the galaxy, to every corner of known space. The children were coming to claim their place at the table, and nothing would ever be the same. Part 3. The demonstration. The void of Koresh was empty space. No planets. No stations. No life. It was the perfect place for a test that might go wrong. It was also the perfect place for the galaxy to watch humanity either succeed or fail. Captain Shinhana stood on the bridge of the Sunbird 2 and looked at the fleet gathered around her. She counted over 200 ships. Velith cruisers with their smooth silver hulls. Korath battleships covered in weapons and armor. Murai observation vessels that looked like floating crystals. Even the Teneri had sent a ship, though no one had seen the Teneri in person for 1,000 years. They had all come to watch. Most of them hoped to see humans embarrass themselves. Some of them hoped to see humans die. Hannah was 43 years old. She had been a fighter pilot in the Korean Air Force before joining the space program. She had flown every type of ship that Earth had built. She had also trained on alien vessels, learning their systems, understanding their weaknesses. She was not afraid of the ships surrounding her. She was not afraid of anything. The Sunbird 2 was a proper ship now, not a converted cargo shuttle. It was built in secret in a shipyard hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean. 60 meters long. With a crew of 12, it looked simple compared to the massive alien vessels. But inside that simple shell was technology that would change everything. Captain, said her navigator, Kang Jisoo. He was a young man with nervous eyes and steady hands. All systems are ready. The drive is charged. Hannah nodded. Open a channel to the observation fleet. The communication screen flickered to life. She saw faces from a dozen species, all watching her with different expressions. Doubt, anger, curiosity, fear. This is Captain Shinhana of the Earth vessel Sunbird 2, she said. As promised, we will now demonstrate independent faster-than-light travel. Our destination is the Verith system, 12 light years from this position. Your observers in that system have been notified to watch for our arrival. A Karth voice cut in. The nearest hyperspace corridor to Verith is 7 light years from here. Even using our fastest ships, the journey would take 3 months. How long do you claim your journey will take? Hannah smiled. Less than an hour. Laughter came through the channel. The Korath commander shook his massive head. Then by all means, human, show us this miracle. Hannah closed the channel and turned to her crew. They were all looking at her, waiting for her command. She saw fear in some eyes, excitement in others. They all knew what was at stake. If they succeeded, humanity would earn its place among the stars. If they failed, they would be a joke for the next 10,000 years. Jisoo, she said calmly. Set course for Verith. The young navigator entered the coordinates. Course set, Captain. Hannah sat back in her chair. She thought about her grandmother, who had never seen an airplane until she was 20 years old. She thought about her father, who had watched the first moon landing on a tiny television. She thought about all the generations of humans, who had looked up at the stars and dreamed of reaching them. Engage the drive. She said that the universe bent. Hannah had read the reports from Dr. Park Gina's first test. She had trained in simulators, but nothing could prepare her for the real thing. For a moment that lasted forever and no time at all, she felt herself stretched across space. She saw colors that had no names. She heard sounds that were not sounds. She felt connected to everything in the universe. Then it stopped. "Captain," Jisoo whispered, "we have arrived. Vera system. 47 minutes total travel time." Hannah looked out the main window. A yellow star burned in the distance. 3 planets orbited it lazily. And there, floating in space, were the observation posts that the elder species had placed here to verify the test. "Open a channel to the observation posts," Hannah ordered. A Velith face appeared on screen. The alien's silver eyes were wide with shock. "This is Vera Station 3. We confirmed the arrival of the Earth vessel. 47 minutes. This is not possible." "And yet, here we are," Hannah replied. "Please transmit your confirmation to the fleet at Koresh." The message would take hours to reach the fleet through normal channels. But that was fine. Hannah had time. "Jisoo, set course for the Tendari marker, 6 light years from here." "Captain, we are going to do this 2 more times," Hannah said, "just to make sure everyone understands that the first jump was not a trick." They jumped to the Tendari marker in 23 minutes. Then they jumped to a dead star called Kareth's Eye in 31 minutes. Each time, they arrived at a place where observation posts were waiting. Each time, they proved that the impossible was possible. By the time they returned to the void of Koresh, the observation fleet had received all 3 confirmations. Hannah opened the channel to the waiting ships. "This is Captain Shin Hana of the Sunbird 2. We have completed 3 faster-than-light jumps to 3 different locations. Total travel time was under 2 hours. Total distance covered was over 24 light years. All arrivals have been confirmed by your own observation posts." Silence. "Earth sends its regards," Hana continued. She allowed herself a small smile. "We will see you when you catch up." The channel exploded with voices, demands, questions, threats, accusations that this was somehow a trick. Hannah ignored them all. She turned to her crew and saw tears in some of their eyes. "Take us home," she said softly. "Our families are waiting." The Sunbird 2 turned toward Earth. The stars stretched and twisted. And 41 minutes later, Captain Shin Hana and her crew were home. In the void of Koresh, 200 alien ships sat in shocked silence. The impossible had happened. A nursery species, a young and foolish race that should have taken thousands of years to develop such technology, had just broken every rule in the galaxy. In her crystal ship, Eye Arbiter Tisana closed her ancient eyes and thought about what she had just witnessed. Humanity had done in 30 years what her own people had failed to do in 30 million. They had found a door that everyone else had assumed was a wall. "Interesting," she said to herself. "Very, very interesting. The galaxy would never be the same again." Part 4. The galaxy responds. The galaxy burned with fear. Within days of the demonstration, emergency meetings were happening on 1,000 worlds. Trade routes that had been stable for centuries suddenly seemed worthless. Military plans that had been made for millennia were now based on wrong assumptions. The entire structure of galactic power was shaking like a building in an earthquake. Admiral Yun Yeho stood in the command center of Earth's new defense fleet and watched the reports coming in. He was 56 years old, with gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. He had spent his whole career preparing for a war that everyone said would never come. Now that war seemed closer than ever. 17 diplomatic communications in the last hour, his aide reported. 12 of them are barely hidden threats. What do they want? Yeho asked. The same thing they all want. The FTL technology. They say if we share it freely, they will guarantee our safety. If we do not, they do not finish that sentence. No, sir. They do not need to. Yeho turned to look at the holographic map of Earth's solar system. 30 ships floated in defensive positions around the planet. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever built. And it was still tiny compared to what the elder species could send. But 30 ships with the new FTL drive were worth more than 300 without it. Let them threaten, Yeho said quietly. We did not come this far to bow down now. On the other side of the galaxy, in the great crystal halls of the Mirai homeworld, High Arbiter Tisana was making a decision that would shock her own people. For the first time in 3,000 years, she was going to visit a nursery species world. This is not wise, her advisors told her. It shows weakness. It shows wisdom, Tisana replied. These humans have done something we could not do. I want to know how. I want to know why. And I want to know what they plan to do next. She traveled to Earth alone, in a small ship that attracted no attention. She did not announce her coming. She simply appeared at the Seoul Research Center, where Dr. Park Gina worked, and asked for a meeting. Gina was surprised, but not afraid. She had spent her life being underestimated. She had learned that the beings who looked most powerful were often the most curious. They sat together in Gina's small office, surrounded by equations and coffee cups and family photographs. Tisana's crystal body glowed softly in the afternoon light. Gina poured tea for both of them, though she was not sure if Tisana could drink it. Your mathematics are elegant, Tisana said after studying the equations on the walls. Simple, in a way. That is what makes them beautiful. Simple does not mean easy, Gina replied. It took me 15 years to find that simplicity. It took my people 30 million years to not find it. Tisana's voice carried something that might have been sadness. We built our entire civilization around the assumption that your solution was impossible. We created empires based on controlling travel through hyperspace corridors. We made wars over wormhole access. We shaped the galaxy according to our limitations. And now? Now a young species has shown us that our limitations were not real. Tisana turned her ancient eyes to Gina. Do you understand what you have done? You have not just invented a new engine. You have destroyed the foundation of galactic order. Gina nodded slowly. I know. Some of my colleagues think I should be afraid. They say the elder species will try to stop us. They say war is coming. They may be right. The Korath are already talking about military action. They controlled the hyperspace corridors. Without that control, their empire is worthless. Desperate people do desperate things. What about your people? The Mirai? Tisana was quiet for a long moment. My people are very old, Dr. Park. We've seen many changes. We know that fighting against the flow of history is foolish. The question is not whether your technology will spread. It will. The question is whether humanity will share it peacefully, or whether other species will try to take it by force. And what do you think we should do? I think you should be very careful. Tisana stood up to leave. You have given the galaxy a gift. But gifts can be dangerous. There will be those who want to use your technology for good. There will be those who want to use it for war. And there will be those who would rather see it destroyed than let others have it. As Tisana left, she paused at the door. One more thing, Dr. Park. The Tendari sent you a message, did they not? Star charts for hidden worlds? Gina's eyes widened. How did you know that? Because the Tendari have been waiting for someone like you for a very long time. They hid those worlds for a reason. Be careful what you find there. Then she was gone, leaving Gina alone with more questions than answers. That night, Councilor Moon Suni called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. She was 73 years old, the oldest member of the governing body. She had seen humanity go from a planet-bound species to a spacefaring one. She had watched her people be treated as children by the galaxy. And now she had to decide what humanity would do with its new power. "The galaxy is afraid of us," she told the council. For the first time in history, they see humans as a threat. "We must decide what kind of threat we want to be. We should share the technology," one counselor argued. "It would bring peace. It would bring chaos," another replied. "Every empire would use it to expand. Wars would break out everywhere. Then we keep it secret. We use it only for ourselves. That would make us the most hated species in the galaxy. They would unite against us." The arguments went on for hours. In the end, Counselor Moon raised her hand for silence. "There is no perfect answer," she said. "We cannot make everyone happy. We cannot prevent all conflict. All we can do is make our choice and live with the consequences." She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. "We will share our technology," she decided. "But slowly, carefully, with conditions. We will not give it to empires that want to make war. We will give it to species that want to explore. We will give it to those who have been trapped, like we were trapped. We will change the galaxy, but we will try to change it for the better." It was not a perfect plan, but it was a human plan. And for the first time in history, humanity had the power to make it real. Outside the council building, the stars shone down on Earth. Somewhere out there, empires were plotting and planning. Wars were being considered. Alliances were forming and breaking. But also, somewhere out there, young species were looking up at the sky and hoping hope was a human gift too, and humanity was ready to share it. Part 5. The New Era. 2 years passed. The galaxy changed. The Korath hegemony fell apart first. For 10,000 years, they had controlled the hyperspace corridors. They had charged fees for every ship that passed through. They had grown rich and powerful by being the gatekeepers of galactic travel. Now the gates meant nothing. The hegemony split into 3 pieces. Some of them tried to adapt to the new reality. Others fought among themselves over what remained of their wealth. A few even reached out to Earth, asking for help they had once refused to give. Admiral Yun Yeho led the response. He was not a man who forgot insults, but he was also not a man who held grudges. When the Korath asked for food and medicine, he sent ships to help. When they asked for protection from their own civil wars, he offered peacekeeping forces. Slowly, carefully, humanity was building friendships with former enemies. "They hated us a year ago," his aide said one day. "Now they ask for our help." "That is how empires fall," Yeho replied. "And that is how new ones rise. We must be careful not to become what they were." The Velith were the first elder species to request technology sharing. They were traders, practical people who cared more about profit than pride. They understood that the old ways were dead. Better to join the future than fight against it. Earth's conditions were strict. No weapons. No military applications. Only ships meant for exploration and trade. The Velith agreed. Within months, they were building their own FTL engines, adapted to their own ships. The galaxy became a little smaller. Other species followed. The Tendari, who had been silent for 1,000 years, emerged from their hidden worlds. They were strange beings, tall and thin, with skin like pale paper and eyes that saw things others could not. They had predicted humanity's rise, they said. They had prepared for it. And now they were ready to share their own secrets. Captain Shinhana led the first expedition to the Tendari hidden worlds. The Sunbird 7 was the most advanced ship Earth had ever built. Its crew of 50 included scientists, soldiers, diplomats, and dreamers. They did not know what they would find. They only knew that the Tendari had been waiting for them. The first hidden world was called the library. It was not a planet but a structure, a vast metal sphere that floated in empty space. Inside were records of civilizations that had risen and fallen before the Mirai were even born. History that had been lost was suddenly found. Mysteries that had puzzled scientists for millennia were suddenly solved. "Why did you hide this?" Hannah asked her Tendari guide. "Why keep it secret for so long?" The Tendari's answer was simple. "We were waiting for a species that could reach us without using the old paths. The corridors and wormholes are watched. They are controlled. But you humans found a new way, a free way. You were the first in 50 million years to do so. Why does that matter? Because the old empires became what they are by controlling travel. They shaped the galaxy to serve their power. But your technology cannot be controlled. It cannot be taken away. You have given the galaxy freedom, Captain Shin. True freedom. That is worth waiting for." Hannah thought about those words often as she explored the hidden worlds. There were 17 of them in total. Some held technology. Some held knowledge. Some held warnings about dangers that still waited in the dark spaces between stars. But all of them held hope. Back on Earth, Dr. Park Jina received the Galactic Prize for Scientific Achievement. It was the highest honor the galaxy could give. No human had ever won it before. No human had ever been considered worthy. She gave her acceptance speech in the same chamber where Ambassador Cho Min-jae had first announced Earth's discovery. The room was full of representatives from dozens of species. Some had traveled for months to be here. Others had used the new FTL technology to arrive in hours. "We did not discover faster than light travel because we were smarter than everyone else," Gina said. "We discovered it because we were young enough to still believe impossible things might be possible. The galaxy told us what could not be done. We were too stubborn to listen." She paused and looked around the room. "I am not here to say that humans are better than other species. We are not. We have our own flaws. We have made our own mistakes. But I believe that every species has something unique to offer the galaxy. Our gift was stubbornness. Our gift was hope. Our gift was the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. The old order is gone," she continued. "The hyperspace corridors are still there, but they are no longer chains. The wormhole generators still work, but they are no longer walls. The galaxy is free now. Free to explore. Free to grow. Free to become something new. What that new thing will be, that is up to all of us, together." After the ceremony, Gina returned to Seoul. She found her old mentor, Professor Bae Taeson, in his small office at the university. He was 91 years old now, too weak to travel but too stubborn to stop working. They sat together by the window, looking up at the stars. "Do you think we changed things for the better?" Taeson asked. Gina thought about the question. Out there, in the vast darkness of space, hundreds of human ships were exploring new worlds. Thousands of alien ships were following in their wake. Old empires were adapting or dying. New alliances were forming. Conflicts were erupting in some places, but peace was spreading in others. "I think we changed things," she said finally. "Better or worse? That is up to everyone now." Taeson smiled. "That is a very human answer. It is the only honest one." The old man was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and took Gina's hand. "You know," he said softly, "when you first came to me with your crazy theories, I thought you were dreaming. But I also thought that dreams are important. Dreams are how we imagine a better future. And sometimes, if we work hard enough, dreams become real." "Thank you," Gina whispered, "for believing in me." "Thank you," Taeson replied, "for proving that belief was not wasted." They sat together in silence as the night grew darker and the stars grew brighter. Above them, unseen, 100 human ships moved between those stars. Faster than light. faster than anyone had believed possible. The galaxy would never be the same. But that was okay. Humanity was ready, and the future was waiting.